right in front of me, I have two iconic cars. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about how similar these cars are, but also highlight some critical differences that really make these cars truly stand apart. Right here, we have the Fiat 124 Abarth. And I actually have the owner of this vehicle present, and he's going to be here giving us some information on this car. And then over here, I have my Mazda Miata right here. Both vehicles have been modified, although one has been significantly more modified than the other. So we'll also talk about, is it worth modifying these small, fun vehicles, or is it better to keep it stock and just how it is in its normal condition? We have the Abarth right here in this beautiful white paint, kept in pretty good condition. And then over here in the Miata, we have this mystical blue paint, rocking Nitto NT05s all around, 235s, while over here we're rocking a little bit more skinny 215s. So let's talk about performance. Stock. What do these cars come shipped in? Well, this car has a 1.4 liter inline-4 turbocharged engine, while the Miata comes with a 2 liter naturally aspirated Skyactiv engine. So stock, these cars are making roughly the same amount of power, around 150 horsepower and 150 foot-pounds of torque. The Fiat 124 Abarth makes closer to 180 foot-pounds of torque stock versus the naturally aspirated 150 that's in the ND Miata. That's because the turbo, of course, gives the Fiat more torque. However, this Miata, if you see my other videos, is actually turbocharged, so the power figures on this car get raised up to about 250 horsepower and 250 foot-pounds of torque. I'll actually do a roll race just to show you guys what 100 horsepower difference could mean on such similar cars. To make these cars even more similar, after blowing up my ND Miata transmission, I swapped an NC Miata transmission onto my Miata. So these cars are actually rocking the exact same transmission. So really, when we do this roll race, it'll be a pretty accurate depiction of what 100 horsepower difference could be. The engine in the Fiat 124 Abarth is actually not designed to be in this car. This engine is actually out of the 500 Abarth, and then they put it into this car. You'll see some interesting fitment issues, or perhaps intricacies that are present in this car. And I want you guys to notice how much space is up here. They actually compensated by putting the ECU up front, and there's just so much room with this airbox and the ECU. There's about 2 feet of room here that is relatively open. After all, this is a small engine, and up here we have the Garrett turbo that the Fiat engine comes with. And now I want to compare this to my car, just to where you can clearly see the difference in the engine. After all, these cars have the exact same chassis, yet exterior-wise, you could barely even tell. Mazda, after all, allowed Fiat to utilize the frame and apply it to the Fiat 124 Abarth. Internals are almost the same. We can see the interior here with the Fiat logo, a red tachometer, the seats. Everything really looks similar to the Miata. Now let's move over to the Miata and take a look. Here you can see the vast similarities that are present among these cars. We don't see a red tachometer here, and we of course see the Mazda logo. Alright, so I have the owner Noah with me, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about this Fiat, what he likes, what he doesn't like, how modified is it. So let's jump into it, Noah. Tell me about this car a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I've had this car going right around 4, 5, 6 months, something in that range. And the first thing I noticed when I bought the car is the fact that it looks amazing, but is slow as shit. Now, this car has a beautiful engine, especially if you open it up with an exhaust, like an aftermarket one that I put on there, one of the first mods you have to do. It sounds beautiful. It sounds like something that should cost twice as much and looks like something that should cost 3 times as much. But when you get on the power, you're talking less than 150 wheel horsepower. So you'll be getting overtaken by a Prius if it's got a heavy driver.
So is it a lot of show, no go, or like, what do you think about that?
Well, it depends. If you're in a straight line, you're gonna be going real slow, but if you're going around the corners, the stock suspension that it has is fantastic. It handles bumps well. It's got one of the best LSDs I've ever driven, so going around corners, you can kick it out. It's all show in the canyons, no go on the freeway.
And I think this is really interesting because the ND Miata has that classic JDM look, but the Fiat just doesn't look really anything alike from the ND Miata. The Fiat 124 Abarth has the classic Italian look, sleek design. Mazda also has a sleek design, but it's definitely distinctive and very different from the Fiat 124 Abarth. So how many miles is on your Fiat right now?
Well, I bought it with about 55,000, and a couple months later, it's nearing almost 65,000.
Okay, so we got some mileage on it, and over those, that 20,000 miles, right?
10,000.
10,000 miles. Over 10,000 miles, how has been your impression of just how reliable is it? How does it perform?
Well, this might come from owning a car secondhand, but the second I got it, 3 days later, the clutch went out. The slave cylinder decided to blow up on me, and that was a $900 fix. Not only that, it likes to drink 1.5 quarts of oil every 3,000 miles, and that's on a 4-quart oil supply, so you're gonna be burning oil real quick. But in terms of everything else, that's basically a Mazda car. NC Mazda transmission from a Miata. It's got a lot of components throughout the chassis from the Mazda, and all that is bone stock reliable.
How modified is your Abarth? Do you plan on modifying it? Are you happy with how it is?
Well, it's one of those things that I want to keep working on. This car right now is not that modified. It's got brake pads on there, which is an absolute must. It's got an exhaust on there, which is an absolute must. But coming very soon is going to be a tune, because this thing is too slow stock. With a tune and that exhaust, is going to be a whole different animal.
Okay, but I heard you already have an exhaust on this car, is that right?
Yeah, I got one from Euro Compulsion, which is going to be the gold standard if you're looking at one of these cars. Every component they make is A1. And if you go through Euro Compulsion and start just applying the parts to it, it's going to be amazing. It really opens up the tone with this exhaust they have. It's a Catback system, 50 state emission compliant, and it sounds wonderful.
I don't know about you guys, but that is a pretty nice exhaust note. Let's hop in the Miata and hear mine. Now, I think it's pretty important to mention that these exhausts are quite different. My friend over here has a Catback exhaust, while my vehicle is much more free-flowing. We'd have basically a straight pipe exhaust system in my car, so there's definitely going to be some differences in tonality and how smooth they sound, but I just wanted to give you guys a rough idea of what the difference in sound is. They're really not alike from each other. As similar as they may seem, these two engines are radically different from each other. So I think a big question that many have is, which one do I pick? Well, I think it really comes down to personal preference. And also, what are you trying to get out of the car? I think the biggest difference between these cars is the styling. One has the classic Italian look, while the Mazda has more of a JDM style. So I think it's going to be very subjective and based on what you think looks best in your opinion. Many prefer the looks of the Fiata. It doesn't really look like anything else on the road. And for its value, I think it's a very compelling offer, and it definitely sets it apart from the Miata. The Miata has more of a classic look and is also much more recognized by many more people. Going down the street, most people know, oh, that's a Miata, but not many people know that it's a Fiat 124 Abarth. So I think it also contributes to its mystique, its mysterious kind of quality. What kind of car is this? And it causes people to want to get a closer look at this Fiat. So let's talk about value here. Both cars are offered at a relatively similar price point. The MX-5 Miatas retail for about $15,000 to $20,000, depending on where you look, how used they are. How much did you pay for your Fiat?
Well, I looked around for quite a while. I was in the market, and I was able to pick up my car for right around $19,500 all in, everything included.
Right, so it's a very similar price point from these two cars. So I think that highlights really how subjective kind of the decision would be. What do you have in terms of input on maybe someone deciding which car they should pick?
Well, it depends. The Fiat 124 Abarth is a much rarer car, so it's going to be tougher to find a good deal because they're less on the market. But if you do end up finding that good deal, this car will be the most unique car in the neighborhood. No one will have the same one.
Have you kind of had that feeling, you know, driving around, that no one really knows what kind of car you have, or is kind of curious by it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's not a car guy, the second they set foot in the car within even a 10-foot radius, they're wondering, what the heck is it? If you get the Abarth trim, there's not a single Fiat badge anywhere on the car short of the steering wheel. And no one knows what an Abarth is. Everyone just knows it looks exotic and sounds great.
Now, we talked a lot of pros with the Fiat 124 Abarth. Is there anything that's kind of been getting on your nerves a lot, or maybe something you don't like about the car specifically?
Yeah, one of the things I already touched on is the oil consumption, and because the oil change is an absolute pain. Because this engine is a Fiat engine and effectively a Mazda chassis, the location of the oil filter is pretty much entirely inaccessible and a total pain to get out. So when you want to do any routine maintenance, you're going to be taking at least an hour.
That sounds like a fun job. On the Miata, oil filter is right at the bottom. Very easy job. Undo the bottom pan and then you can get that oil filter out within a couple minutes. We actually did the oil change on the Fiat 124 Abarth the other day, and trust me, it was much more involved. So I guess that kind of goes to show the kind of unique differences between these two cars.
The most annoying thing about driving this car is how heavy the stock flywheel is. Now this means that going between first and second shifts, it feels like you're waiting 2-3 seconds for the revs to drop, or if you want to go fast, you're going to end up just banging gears, and it doesn't feel nice to do that to your clutch.
Well, I guess we'll go bang some gears right now. Let's go do a 10 roll real quick and see how these two cars perform. So we talked quite a bit about both these cars, and there will be definitely more content coming out with this Fiat 124 Abarth. After all, these cars have so many similarities but are so different, and there are for sure going to be some more mods onto this Fiat 124 Abarth. So I hope this video helped you guys a little bit more about kind of the overall impression of these cars. What's it like to see from different angles, the color differences, and just overall the information from an actual owner of a Fiat 124 Abarth, what he personally thinks about it. As there were some things about the Fiat 124 Abarth I didn't know until I spoke to an actual owner of the car, which is why I think it's so valuable to get information from an actual owner of the vehicle, as they have personal first-hand experience with driving that car. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll definitely be having more content coming your guys' way soon, and yeah, I will talk to you all later. Peace.